He's a world champion. He's thrown a 9-darter on the biggest stage in the sport. He's been called a bully, a fighter, and the best arrowist never to be given his full due. But in June of 2026, Michael Smith did something that had nothing to do with double tops or checkout percentages. He packed his bags, cancelled his flights, and walked away from 2 ranking tournaments without throwing a single dart. Not because of injury, not because of a scandal, because of a dog named Luna. This is the story of that week, and why, if you actually look at the last 3 years of Michael Smith's career, it makes more sense than almost anything else he's done. Let's set the scene. It's the start of June 2026. The PDC Pro Tour calendar is grinding through its usual relentless pace. Back-to-back Players' Championship events, this time in Milton Keynes, Event 19 and Event 20. 2 ranking tournaments crammed into 2 days like they always are on the tour. For most players, missing one of these is a big deal. Ranking points, prize money, seeding for the majors, it's all on the line every single week, and Michael Smith was entered in both. Then, on the morning it all changed, Smith posted something that had nothing to do with the tournament sheet. He described what he called a whirlwind couple of hours. His dog, a family pet named Luna, had walked into the living room, looked at the family, and then lay down and suddenly deteriorated. They rushed her to the vets. She didn't make it. Smith wrote that the family was, in his words, heartbroken over their girl. He said they'd miss her, and signed off hoping she'd be running free. It was raw. It wasn't polished PR. It read exactly like what it was. A bloke who just lost a pet that had clearly been part of the family for years, trying to put something into words in the immediate aftermath. And then came the second post, the one that actually made news beyond the darts world. Smith confirmed that he wouldn't be travelling to Milton Keynes at all. He said he didn't even have to think about it for long. He wasn't going to play, he was staying home, and he was going to take care of his family. 2 ranking events, gone without hesitation. Now, if you don't follow the sport closely, this might just read as a sad but fairly ordinary story. A professional athlete taking compassionate leave. But if you do follow darts, and if you followed Michael Smith's career specifically over the last 3 years, this moment lands very differently. Because Michael Smith pulling out of a tournament isn't new. What's new is why. To understand that, you have to go back to January 2023, to Alexandra Palace, and to the night that's still talked about as maybe the single greatest moment the sport has ever produced. Smith walked into that World Championship final against Michael van Gerwen, having already lost 2 World Championship finals before. Heartbreak in 2019, heartbreak again in 2022. 2 runner-up medals from the biggest stage in the sport, the kind of result that can define a career in the cruelest possible way. This was his 3rd crack at it, and in the second set of that final, something happened that nobody watching had ever seen at that level before. Van Gerwen, throwing first, went for a 9-dart finish. The perfect leg, 3 visits, 9 darts, game over, and missed the very last dart, catching the outside of double 12. It was agonizingly close, and then Michael Smith stepped up to the same oche, needing the same finish just to win the leg, and did what Van Gerwen couldn't. He hit it, a 9-darter of his own, immediately after his opponent had missed one by a whisker. Sky Sports commentator Wayne Mardle lost his composure on air, and that leg is still routinely described as the greatest single leg in the history of the sport. Smith went on to win the match 7-4, world champion, world number 1, 20 plus years into the sort of grinding up and down career that the arts specializes in producing. It should have been the beginning of a golden era for him. Instead, it was close to the opposite. Smith has been open, sometimes painfully open, in tears in front of live TV cameras about what happened next. He said more than once that after finally winning the world title he'd chased for years, something in him let go. He took time away from the tour. He's admitted that in hindsight, that was probably a mistake, that the hunger that had carried him through 2 heartbreaking final defeats needed to be fed, not rested, and then the body started to go. Smith has talked at length about breaking both of his wrists when he was 19 years old, an injury that, by his own account, is now catching up with him decades later in the form of arthritis in his throwing hand. He's also dealt with a persistent shoulder problem, serious enough that there was, in his words, talk of a shoulder replacement at one stage, something he's flatly ruled out because the recovery time alone would likely cost him his tour card. On top of that, arthritis in his feet and ankle. In July of 2025, he stepped away from the tour again, this time for laser eye surgery, promising fans he'd be back. By November 2025, at the Grand Slam of Darts, all of that boiled over in public. Smith won an emotional group match against his friend Nathan Aspinall, and in the interview afterwards, he broke down. He said he was sick of sitting at home watching other people win tournaments while he was stuck on the sidelines. He said it more bluntly than that, actually. Raw frustration, no filter. He talked about the UK Open semi-final he once played with an open wound in his leg, about breaking both hands at 19 and being back on tour within 2 weeks of getting the casts off. "I'm a fighter, that's it," he said. It's become something close to his personal motto at this point in his career. A month later, at the World Championship in December 2025, there was a rare bit of good news. Cortisone injections in his ankle and hand gave him something he said he hadn't felt in 4 years, a completely pain-free walk to the oche. He talked about wanting to reach 30 World Championship appearances before he's done, about not being ready to even discuss a break from the sport, about telling his medical team that if they ever said he needed time off, he'd rather just retire outright than sit out. That's how much stepping away from competition has historically cost him, mentally. It's not something he does lightly. It's not something he's ever wanted to do. He was remarkably blunt about the trade-offs involved too. A shoulder replacement, he explained, would mean roughly a year out of the game at minimum, followed by another stretch trying to rebuild form. And by his own reckoning, that kind of absence would likely cost him his PDC Tour card altogether, forcing him back through qualifying school just to earn the right to compete again. Faced with that maths, he said plainly that he'd rather deal with the surgery once he's actually retired than risk his career trying to fix a problem that, in his words, isn't what's actually stopping him from playing right now. It's a mindset that only really makes sense once you understand how hard won his career has been in the first place. A man who left school one exam short of finishing a joinery course to chase a darts career instead, who broke his hip falling off his bike at 15, who broke both wrists at 19 and was back competing on tour within a fortnight of the casts coming off. Everything in his history points to a player who treats stepping away from the oche as close to a last resort. Even with the pain relief, the run continued to be difficult. That same World Championship ended in a straight defeat to Dutchman Niels Zonneveld in the second round. A good performance by most assessments, but a loss all the same, and another early exit for a former world number 1 now ranked well outside the game's elite. Through the early months of 2026, his ranking on the world stage had slipped into the low 30s, a genuinely stark fall for a man who once sat at the very top of the sport. That's the man who, in June 2026, looked at 2 Players' Championship events, ranking points he could genuinely have used, prize money that matters when you're fighting your way back up an order of merit, and didn't hesitate for a second to walk away from both of them. Because here's the thing that makes this story worth telling. Everything we know about Michael Smith over the last 3 years tells you that competing is not optional for him. It's not a job he clocks in and out of. He has, by his own admission, played through arthritis, through a leg wound, through a body that doctors have suggested might need a shoulder replacement. He has said, on the record, that he would rather retire than be told to take a break. This is a man who has built an entire public identity, winner, fighter, bottle, as he once summed himself up, around never stepping back. And he stepped back anyway, immediately, without the internal debate that's clearly accompanied every other absence from the tour in his recent history. That contrast is really the whole story here. It's not really a story about darts at all, in the end. It's a story about what actually moves the needle for someone who has spent 3 years insisting that nothing, not pain, not a fall down the rankings, not the prospect of surgery, will make him step off the stage. A family pet did, without him even needing to think about it. The tournament itself moved on, as these things always do. Players' Championship 19 was won by Jeffrey de Groff, who beat Johnny Clayton 8-5 in the final for what was his second PDC ranking title. Life on the tour doesn't stop for anyone, which is exactly why walking away from it, even for a few days, is never a small decision for a professional darts player living on ranking points and appearance fees. But the response from the darts community said plenty too. Smith's tribute post reportedly drew support from thousands of fans, along with messages from figures inside the sport, including darts officials who had crossed paths with him over the years. For a sport that can, at times, feel relentlessly transactional, legs, sets, averages, prize money, qualification cut-offs, it was a moment where the human side of these players broke through everything else. It's worth remembering that darts, more than most professional sports, is built on players who travel constantly, who are away from home for enormous stretches of the year chasing ranking points across the UK and Europe, and whose families absorb a lot of that absence quietly, in the background, without ever making headlines themselves. When something like this happens, it's a reminder of exactly what these players are juggling behind the walk-on music and the 9 darters. Smith has since confirmed he intended to take roughly a week away before returning to competition, and true to the fighting reputation he's built for himself, he did go on to return to the big stage, with a win to mark the comeback. A small but symbolic reminder that whatever the setback, on or off the oche, Michael Smith has a well-documented habit of finding his way back. It's a pattern that's now repeated itself more times than most players ever have to manage in a single career. Injury layoffs, eye surgery, personal loss, each followed by a stage return that his fans have come to expect from him almost as much as they expect the scoring power that first made him a household name in the sport. So where does that leave the bully boy heading into the rest of 2026? Still fighting to reclaim a ranking position that once had him at world #1. Still managing a body that by his own account isn't going to stop causing him problems anytime soon. Still chasing the second world championship he's talked openly about wanting, to put himself alongside the true legends of the modern era. But for 1 week in June, none of that mattered. And maybe that's the most telling thing anyone could say about Michael Smith. That after everything his body and his career have put him through these past 3 years, it took the loss of a dog named Luna to make him do, without a second thought, the one thing pain and setbacks alone never could. If you've enjoyed this look behind the headlines at the dart side, let us know in the comments what you think Michael Smith's road back to the top actually looks like from here. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories from the real side of professional darts.